Now here we see, as you can see on the board, it is written as respiration, and this is one of the second most important life processes. The first important life processes, I said nutrition, and second is the respiration. So while respiration, basically we have so many terms. You see, we come across breathing, we come across the term inhalation. Okay, so what is breathing and what is inhalation, and rather what is respiration? So basically, when you take in oxygen and it goes up to the lungs. Mind it, I am repeating the word again. When you take in oxygen and oxygen just reaches the lungs, you call it as a breathing. What is inhale? Inhale means you take in oxygen, it goes into your body through the nasal cavity. See, it's written here, it goes into your body through the nasal cavity. And what is the difference between breathing, inhale and respiration? Respiration is basically when oxygen splits down the glucose, breakdowns in the glucose and produces ATP, we call it as respiration. So what is respiration? In one word, you can say that nutrition gets oxidized, that is known as respiration. But technically, you are not supposed to write this in your answer. If somebody asks you what is respiration, you cannot write it that nutrition gets oxidized. It is for your understanding, I have mentioned it, but basically respiration is a process by which glucose breaks down inside the body to produce ATP. And what is ATP? ATP is a adenosine triphosphate molecules or biological useful energy packets. Okay, so we cannot consume any kind of energy. For example, a battery cannot give you energy, sun cannot give you energy, or electricity cannot give you energy. So whatever food you take in, a chapati has to get converted into ATP to produce glucose that has to break down to provide you energy. So it is our biological useful energy packet. Now since respiration is completed, we'll do two basic categories of respiration. Hope you get a clear view. Now here it is written glucose. So what is glucose? It is a basic key respiratory substrate. What is respiratory substrate? Respiratory substrate is anything that is basic to the respiration. You cannot do without respiration cannot be done without glucose. So whatever happens with the glucose, it happens inside the cell. Basically, first and foremost, the cytoplasm is the site where glucose is broken down, and later it is completed in the mitochondria. So before we go to the detail, we have two basic categories of respiration. As you can see on the board, it is anaerobic respiration and aerobic respiration and anaerobic respiration. What is aerobic? The word aerobic means respiration happens in the presence of oxygen, and anaerobic is respiration that happens in the absence of oxygen. These two are the main thing. Now you see, first and foremost, glucose is a 6-carbon compound. Okay, so this 6-carbon compound is reduced to 3-carbon compound that is known as a pyruvate. It happens inside the cytoplasm. Now once it happens inside the cytoplasm, as you all know that mitochondria is an energy converter, this pyruvate mixes with the oxygen molecule inside the mitochondria, okay, and produces carbon dioxide, water and 38 ATP molecules. So this 38 ATP molecules is a huge ATP gain that happens in the aerobic respiration. Now here we come to the anaerobic respiration. The first basic process is same. But the thing is, the amount of energy produced in the anaerobes are quite less, very small amount of energy. Why? Because only due to the lack of oxygen, only half breakdown. This word has to be mentioned very clearly, that only half breakdown. That means glucose is only broken down into half. So the end product is, instead of a large amount of energy, we get alcohol or ethanol. Alcoholic fermentation is there, and basically it is seen in the yeast, and then when, for example, the bread and any idli, dosa, batter, whatever fermentation happens, it happens due to anaerobic respiration. Now again you see that brewing of wine, okay, so or any other thing, and is also done through alcoholic fermentation. Now see, in both the cases the initial process is same. The glucose, 6 glucose molecule has to be broken down into pyruvate, and it happens in the cytoplasm. Now the difference starts that in the absence of oxygen, oxygen, little amount of carbon dioxide is produced, ethanol is produced, and see here it produces only 2 ATP molecules. Okay, now you may say that if oxygen is not there, how is it possible? Now see, the yeast and other thing, they have got other lower animals, those who perform anaerobic respiration, they have got an enzyme. So these enzymes helps it to divide. So that is why it is not so much useful, since the glucose molecule is not literally completely broken down. So, but this happens in case of human body also. For example, you see muscle fatigue. When muscle fatigue is what? After a rigorous exercise, you feel that your hands and limbs are feeling powerless. Why? Because due to accumulation of lactic acid. See, glucose and pyruvate, this reaction is same in both cases of aerobic and anaerobic, and later on, instead of ethanol, this lactic acid and energy. So this lactic acid, it's a very slow process. This lactic acid is again gets converted into carbon dioxide, water vapor, due to the presence of oxygen. That happens in the human being. So basically in today's class we have learned about the difference between aerobic and anaerobic respiration, and for your classwork or for your assignment, you are going to do you are going to define what is respiration and what are the 2 types of respiration, and the aerobic and difference between aerobic respiration and anaerobic respiration. The later part, the detail of physiology of respiration, we will be doing in our next class.